Welcome back to Smug and Play, where we take a big crap on your favorite PC games from the 90s.
That's your intro?
This is we
why
got some feedback from Rise of the Triad episode. I think we have the benefit here of having a lot of hindsight. We can look at Dark Forces, other relevant games from the time period. But we need to be a little bit more thoughtful about people's, first-person shooter experiences, other things.
I understand that. I mean, we should probably tell our viewers what we actually do here, which is we play through all of the mid-90s, late 90s PC games month by month by exploring PC Gamer's demo CDs, and we've arrived now in the month of July 1995. And the first game we're going to play here is one that I saw advertised everywhere in mid-90s, PC gaming and console gaming magazines, but that I didn't really play back in the day, and that is this FMV animated sort of adventure game called Brain Dead 13. Did you ever play this one back in the day? On anything?
No, I didn't know anything about this game, or even sort of the genre of this game.
Oh, really? You didn't know? Okay, so the game, and the reason why I was interested in looking at magazines is it has a kind of distinctive animation style, which is, a little bit of Disney, a little bit of like mid-90s cartoons that you would see on Nickelodeon, like Rocko's Modern Life, and I put together, and I became nostalgic for that. But, mechanically, the game is very closely related to the 80s arcade laserdisc games, Dragon's Lair and Space Ace. And ReadySoft, the company that made this, actually wasn't involved in those creations. Those were made by the American Microcomputer Systems Company and the Don Bluth Animation Studios. Don Bluth being a former Disney animator who went off on his own. And ReadySoft was actually the company that made the early PC ports of Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, notably to the Amiga and other things. But those were made earlier on, and they didn't really have, the computers didn't really have the capability to provide the full resolution, like full frame animation experience of the Laserdisc games. But ReadySoft decided that they want to make sort of their own property that fully realized that genre. And here it is, Brain Dead 13.
Dead 13, yeah. So to tell you how far off I was, I thought Don Bluth was like a character from Arrested Development or something,
There's always money in the banana stand. So I think, it's easy to associate these games because ReadySoft did the ports, they immediately were like, hey, let's tell you about Dragon's Lair and Space Ace. They put this convenient how to play thing here, which goes through the story. Now, the story is basically that, and I guess this is a reference to Dragon's Lair, but you're Lance Galahad, a very, Camelot-y type name, obviously referencing Dirk, I guess, from the Dragon's Lair sort of medieval fantasy, universe. But he's basically like, what's like Best Buy's computer support team, the Geek Squad. It's basically a Geek Squad employee who is sent out to repair a supercomputer at a spooky mansion, and it turns out that there's a sort of talking brain that seeks to kill him after he repairs the machine. And of course, this talking brain can't actually do anything by itself. It's stuck in its tube of fluid, so he has some sort of weird like pirate dog creature, I think is the best way to describe Fritz. He's sort of this, or maybe he's like supposed to be a hunchback or something. Anyway, he has two like Captain Hook piratey claw hooks, and tries to kill you. And this is a regular old Laserdisc game, so we're trying to take actions at the right time to proceed along like the one path that doesn't kill you, because all other paths murder you. This is the way that Laserdisc games work, because Laserdisc games are, they're essentially linear. We played a lot of bad shooters, like bad light gun games that are similar from American Laser Games. Go back and watch all of our wonderful video content about games by American Laser Games. So for whatever reason, the demo for Brain Dead 13 starts you in the most obnoxious part of the game, which is this like hedge maze that you have to navigate. And the only way that you can do this, I think, without cheating is by trial and error. Is there any other way to do it?
Well, if you continue far enough here,
yes, I know they do.
So I don't know if it's cheating.
Right. So if you keep on going, they're like, "Hey, warning!
Spoilers.
Yeah. This is only for people who don't like to be horribly frustrated." I mean that image, I think, of the skull in the like toxic waste or acid. That's how I felt playing the game without knowing what to do. So the easiest way, this is the easiest way. Just remember this simple series of steps: right, up, left, down, right. I mean, it's like, remember like the blood code for Mortal Kombat for Genesis? It's like down, up, left, A, right, down. It's like that, except that is the game. That's not something that unlocks content.
Before camera phones, I'm sure this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. They had paper. You have to remember that in 1995 we had paper.
Oh, they had paper.
Yeah. Paper works super well for this, and that's what I would recommend anyway. So what's going to happen is I'm going to start this, and at the very beginning you have sort of a few milliseconds to avoid Fritz, who is trying to tear you apart, and then jump like into the maze. But if you do not hit the button at the exact right time, then it's almost like nothing's happening. It's almost like your keyboard's broken. Okay. We have the explosion. Mm-hmm. And the quality of the animation is fantastic. From a technical perspective, even for 1995, like I think the digitization of the hand-drawn animation and the fluidity, even on period hardware, like any Pentium is able to get this cartoon, an interactive cartoon running. It's actually quite impressive.
Unlike the American laser games stuff we played where it was like 160 by 120 or something.
Yeah,
this is really low res.
Yeah, this is happening. I think this is in 320 by 200 or 320 by 240 res, but it's obviously 256 colors. It looks great. So I don't know. So Fritz here demonstrates his unsuitability for performing repairs on a delicate electronic device by pulling out the schematics and then completely ripping them to shreds with his hook hand. So yeah, so then that's why the brain calls Geek Squad. But I mean, but the animation is like so it's so distinct. It has so much character, And so even though, as we'll see, the interactivity portion is a total mess, I think that, from an aesthetic standpoint, it is really something. And here we get the beautiful sort of Booger Man-esque title sequence reveal. I don't know if anything's ever been described as Booger Man-esque. Okay, so...
it's Nickelodeon Slime-esque.
Right. It's some Nickelodeon show filmed in... Okay, I was too late. But you can also be too early.
I messed you up.
No, I
think you have to just mash the keyboard, right?
You can mash. So if I recall correctly, I need to mash right. I mean, I can try to get the timing right. Okay, here we go. We're over.
All right.
So now what was it? Up?
Right, I think.
Was it right? Oh, I thought it was up. Oh, no, you're right.
I don't know.
I think you're right. All right. I did not hit it. I was mashing it, but I think I started my mashing at the wrong time. So, as you see, I've already died like twice here. The game, although derided by critics for basically demonstrating why FMV games are terrible and that the interactivity is contrived and frustrating and limited. Wait, now where I go up?
I don't know. Up. Let's try up. What?
I spent too much time asking. Oh, we got these beautiful animated death sequences. So this game is more forgiving than other horrible FMV games of the genre, and then it takes you back to where you were, and you have unlimited continues.
Okay.
And so it is actually possible to extract a degree of enjoyment. What do I do now?
I don't know. Don't ask.
I didn't hit it. I didn't hit it fast enough.
Yeah. So the other thing about this game, like I could see parents mistaking this for edutainment, but it's quite violent. It's like a Trojan horse for violence in their family.
It's not. There's not exactly wanton gore or anything like that.
True.
I think they learned their lesson. I mean, this got a K to A rating. I remember.
Yeah, I looked it up, and it was K to A.
Yeah.
With animated violence.
With animated violence. Okay, evidently that was not the best plan. So, this game is... What was interesting is that even though this game has like a considerable technical achievement, this is the best realization of like an animated FMV game really that I've seen. Critics by this point are not having it. Like clearly the tide has turned, and all the magazines, next gen especially, basically decide that they've had enough of the whole genre. That the really tight and arbitrary like timing of the action input and the trial and error nature has become just whereas before like they would talk about some other element, they talk about how it uses it to like tell its story and like has most amazing, and they would talk about the quantity of FMV. Like by the time we got in here to July of '95, nobody is taking this anymore. So GameSpot handed this thing a 3.5 out of 10, and they called it a skillfully animated cartoon that is almost entirely unplayable and fails completely as an interactive experience. So, having, in July of '95, having seen MechWarrior 2 and its approach to immersion and storytelling, and having, Descent be out and Dark Forces be out, the expectations now, I think, for interactivity alongside the like visual presentation are high enough that this game is just it's nobody wants to touch it, right?
Do you think if they called it a visual novel instead of a game, maybe it would be different?
So the problem is that because it draws on the legacy of Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, where it's these like quick time events where you have very limited amount of time to input an action. I think if it waited for you to input your action, for instance, then some of these things would be, they didn't call it a game so much as they called it a visual novel or something like that, interactive visual novel, then I think there would have been a greater reception to it. Remember, Dragon's Lair came out in 1983, right? So the game design principles there, and it was also supposed to be a quarter muncher. And people compared the difficulty of this to Dragon's Lair, and inside the Dragon's Lair, or even Dragon's Lair and Space Ace were more fair than Brain Dead 13. But these are very old game design ideas at this point, and it's clear that we have moved on. And as a result, as much of an aesthetic achievement, I think Brain Dead 13 is. And if you watch the full playthroughs of it, it really is like it has so much character. It's excruciating. Unless you want to sit there mashing at the right time with a printout of the exact move list, in which case you're not going to see what's going on in the screen. So, you might as well watch a video. So I totally agree with what GameSpot says here. It's just I'm surprised with how long it took us to get to the point where critics would say that instead of some fluff, Do you have anything else to say about Brain Dead 13?
I, as well, would like to not have any more Laserdisc games on the PC Gamer Disc, if possible.
I think we are. I think we are moving away. I think we are going to start to see some games that give us this level of aesthetic achievement with the interactivity that we want.